real estate agent? Are you looking to acquire clients consistently so you can grow your business and your income to live a great lifestyle? This is Dave Finale and the RE Skill Builder Podcast.
Hey everybody, Dave Finale here. This is Real Estate Skill Builder, TGIF. It is episode 125. That's 123 weeks, and we've done 125 episodes in that time. We believe in being consistent. We believe in to do what we've got to do it every week. We're going to move forward. I was just talking with my guest Steve here about our Fridays coming up. We have two really important Fridays aside from Black Friday, which we have no idea what's going to happen that day. But we have Christmas Day and January 1st, which are Fridays. So those are going to be live shows, so we don't miss week. So anyway, I'd like to introduce my guest, Steve Rosado from Legion. Hey, Steve, how are you?
Good, man. Thank you for having me today. I was impressed with that. Was a nice intro you had.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I ask everybody the same question as we start, and also there's not a similar question, but we have the same question again too. But the part is, Steve, do you know what TGIF stands for?
Thank God it's Friday.
Well, yeah, usually people would think that, but it actually means thank God it's finale. Exactly, right? So here we are. We are November 6th, 2020. Less than 2 months to go in the year. Steve, you've been in the real estate business for quite some time. You've also had some other fun and interesting jobs in your lifetime. Talk to me about how you got the Legion Pro, which Legion Pro quickly is just a reliable contractor. I'm just going to use those two words real quick, and we can get into that. People that don't have to be afraid to recommend. So talk about how you got to this point, because you've had a great real estate career.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's kind of a little bit of a long road. I never really saw myself in construction. Ultimately, it's the perfect fit based off of where my skills and interests lie. And the way that I got here was I was selling real estate. You've probably seen the video that kind of explains a little bit of how Legion Pro started. But I got into real estate 12 years ago. And about 3 or 4 years into my career is when I started to accelerate. I had a really good coach. Dave DeVoe was my mentor. And I started to really learn how to lead generate. And so as I started generating leads, I ran into some really savvy investors. I learned how to source properties for them. And then ultimately they were renovating properties. They were flipping basically and making huge profits. And so at the closings, the first few, I was just excited to be doing real estate transactions. And then, after like the 10th or 11th one, I started scratching my head and saying like, these guys are making a lot of money. And I think I can do this. Like I'm finding the properties is really the hard part. And then I'm selling them for like record numbers. So I was like, I can do everything else in between. So I started flipping properties as well. I partnered on some of them with Brad. I've partnered with Dave in the past. I've done my own projects. And the way that I found the way that Legion Pro happened is actually from failure. And I think it's actually probably the best way to have a successful business is to learn from past failures. And what I mean by failure is I had hired and fell victim to a string of just unpolished contractors. And, they basically underestimated. They got the estimating wrong. They sold the dream and then they just were not able to perform the work. So ultimately I was stuck with multiple properties carrying high interest loans on a daily basis. I'd done everything in my job to find the properties. And ultimately they had failed. So it left me in a really, really tough spot. The one I talk about in the video that I'd sent out to a bunch of real estate agents, I had overextended myself. A lot of people have made that mistake. I purchased 3 properties at one time, figured everything was going to be great based off of the estimates, just had a newborn child. And so those types of dynamics all in one, wasn't prepared for what happened with just the lack of professionalism with the contractors. And they basically just disappeared. So I was left, with just high interest loans, and I had to figure it out. And there was a contractor that he only worked privately. I had tried to get him, I tried to hire him many times in the past, but he had only worked for private equity groups and large commercial companies. and he was a past client of mine. I sourced a bunch of properties for him. I actually learned, investment a lot just by seeing what he did. And I called him and I just asked him for help. And I was like, listen, man, this is the position I'm in. And he showed up within 10 minutes. Now, this is somebody that had, $60 million portfolio. And he was there in 10 minutes. And he just helped me get everything to the finish line and didn't charge me anything. He was just happy that he was able to help me. And then when it was done, he looked at me and he was like, we're done with our investment. And, do you think there are people that are in your shoes that could use a reliable resource like myself, meaning him? And I immediately was, I jumped at the opportunity.
That's really pretty cool what you said. I mean, how it went, but you had quite a growing real estate business yourself, though. This year, last year, this year, you're going to really go really heavy duty. Here you are at the pinnacle of your own real estate career. What goes through somebody's head when they're doing really well and they're making really, making good money in this business? Yeah. Let's face it, right? If you're doing 20 million, you're doing okay, right? What goes through your head? I understand. I've been in the building business, contractor business, renovating, flipping. I've done it all, built houses, and I've had issues with people not showing up. I've been able to work with it, but what goes through your head when you decide to throw it all away kind of and start brand new? It's kind of odd, man.
It's crazy, right? It actually, it does. It takes a crazy person to do that, I think. Because it took me 12 years to build my real estate business. And you're right, it's still accelerating. And in terms of numbers, I think this year will be the best year. And that's only one quarter. That I only sold real estate for one quarter this year, and that's 20 million basically. But I felt like I wasn't breaking any new ground in real estate. I had kind of mastered that specific process. But, ultimately at the end of the day, I didn't feel like I was solving any problems for anybody. Yes, I was selling a lot of real estate. I created a great process for my clients. I felt like other people were able to do that similarly. And I felt like this industry, contracting, is one that had no customer service whatsoever. And right. I feel like the amount of people that are left in the position that I was in is a lot larger than most people would know. And I saw the opportunity to solve that problem. And yes, there's a massive pay cut. And it's an absolute kind of crazy idea to say, let me take my foot off of the gas of this accelerating train over here. And let me try and start this, this car on the side of the road.
So let's talk about the breakdown of actually what happens with contracts. So I've been in the building business really more or less all of my real estate career, which goes all the way back, honestly, to 1980. And as learning from the ground up, I actually did learn from literally the ground up. Yeah. And knowing about what guys not showing up, I'm going to tell you the trick that from in the 80s and 90s, before cell phones, before answering machines even were big. If someone didn't show up a couple of days in a row and they wouldn't answer their phone, or they would never be home when someone would answer the phone at their house, I'd have to show up at their house at 6 a.m. the next day. And that was what I did. Yeah. Right. There was this thing in the late 90s called Nextel when we got cell phones. And Nextel was great because you knew if their phone was on or their phone was off by the sound of the beep you got. Yep. If their phone was on, they saw your name. But then as time went on, people got smart and everything, and you had to learn how to make sure they showed up and stuff. But you have the general contractor and you have the contractor that works for them. So the GC is, that could be you and me, because I GC'd my own jobs. I hired everybody individually. Yeah. And that was where the work was. But when you've got an individual homeowner, talk about the stress. Everybody knows what the stress is, but you talked about lack of customer service. How do you solve the lack of customer service problem when we talk about that?
Well, there's a couple. There's two main answers to that one question. So the first one is, I would describe our company as a technology integrated contracting service provider.
Technology integrated. Okay.
All right. So that's the first one. Is we have brought technology into the world of general contracting. So our back end systems are all built out. We have our assistants and our project coordinators working alongside of us to make sure that there's communication. That's a major issue in the industry, is there's no communication. So at all points in time, there's communication, and it's all driven by the fact that we're using technology as our basis in the background. So, and then the second portion is we are a full service contractor as well. So yes, we will subcontract things out. But I'll give you an example, in terms of like, we hire drywall production crews as a subcontractor for larger drywall jobs. If they're a day late, we'll do it ourselves. And that goes for every aspect of the job. We're able to do it. So if a sub, and all of our subs, they go through a very stringent process. We don't just hire anybody. So for the most part, this doesn't happen. But things occur on other jobs where, it delays the next one. We'll step in, we'll finish it. So our timelines are always hit.
Right. So in other words, what you're saying is that you've got you are your own contractor to back up the people that you hire to come in and do the work as a sub.
Exactly. Yep. So at no point is finishing within a timeline or the ability to complete a scope a problem. That's all been solved.
So let's talk about the communication aspect, because this has got to be the biggest or one of the biggest issues that regular homeowners have a problem with. They have a problem with, not they have the problem, but they can't ever get the guy on the phone. The guy says he's going to be there at 8. He shows up at 1. Look, it's the same crap we get with our, the cable companies are going to show up between 8 and 2. Gee, thank you for the window. That's a really great window.
Yeah. You got to take up a full day of work for 10 minutes.
But how do you follow up with them, and how do you instill the communicative processes with the contractor that you're hiring so that there's no bullshit?
Well, so the technology helps because there is a background system that is communicating with the client, letting them know what days and times to expect. It's even giving them notifications kind of real time as to when things have been modified in the estimate if they ask us to add something. And then we have our transaction coordinator in the background that's also making sure that everybody's schedules and calendars are aligned. But we're not perfect. Things still happen. There's always going to be conflict in schedules, especially when you have large scopes of work. But the difference is we own up to it, and we're not disappearing. That's been the major thing that I've seen in contracting, is they just disappear altogether. So we'll at least let people know we're going to be half an hour late. No excuse. We just let them know we'll be there and we're getting the job done.
Yeah, I think you just said something that is huge in life, let alone contracting, real estate. Everybody has an excuse. Everybody's got an excuse for this. Oh, there's traffic or this, that, and the other. I always said to people, if you know there's going to be traffic, leave earlier. So don't use that excuse, right? It's like the employee that shows up 20 minutes late and says, "Oh yeah, there was traffic." I said, "But you drive that every day, and there's traffic, and there's so why didn't you just leave earlier?" That's why they have like Waze, and that's why these news programs on TV have the traffic people that tell you where the problems are. Anyway, I digress. Sorry about that, because excuses are something that just don't make it for me. So, so you mentioned a transaction coordinator. That's something we know in real estate, residential real estate, to get our transactions smoothly closed. But you say you have a transaction coordinator for your company. And tell me more about that.
Well, it's funny because my brain gets tied, right? So the real title for her is project coordinator, but she's by all intents and purposes a transaction coordinator. And what's interesting about that is I took what I learned from 12 years of experience in real estate, and I'm applying it to this industry now, because this is where my mindset kind of exploded in the real estate industry, is when my mentors and my coaches pointed out to me that real estate's not a sales industry. Like, yes, you're technically you are selling something,
right? But
it involves a facilitation of a transaction. But in reality, it's a customer service industry.
Right.
So once you've tackled that and you understand that it's all about customer service, and like the sale is just going to naturally transpire with good customer service. And so that's what we're bringing to what was labeled as a labor industry. Now, we have highly skilled laborers, but we're also incorporating customer service into it. And that's where we took the idea of a transaction coordinator, and we have a project coordinator.
That's amazing. I will say, we're about 15 minutes into this program, and I will admit to everybody that I am not a customer. However, I have used Legion Pro for one of my customers. And when you have faith in the human being, like I have faith in Steve. I know Steve. We've known each other about a year or so, and just knowing his work ethic. I really didn't worry about hiring you or referring you. All I know is that every time I saw my client, they were telling me how great that you guys were doing and everything else. So I can come from not firsthand, but secondhand, but actually as a real estate agent and a real estate professional, I see how it worked extremely well for my client. So, I got nothing but 5-star reviews for you as far as that goes on. A lot of things that we have to do. You mentioned in the video on your blog, you talked about, people needing a reliable contractor, right? You need to have that reliable contractor, and how are they going to find them, right? So you also want to refer to real estate agents. How are you getting involved with agents? Are you doing it mostly right now by word of mouth, or what can you offer to real estate agents so that they understand you and your company a lot more?
So what I let people know is that, and I do point this out often, we're not probably never going to be the least expensive option, right?
Right.
But when you give us as a reference, our prices that we're giving out are the right prices. That's the cost that it's going to take for a reliable resource to get the job done fast and get it done right the first time. So, if they're giving their customers the right reference, I mean, listen, a lot of people ask for one or two. We have no problem. I tell customers all the time, that's smart. You should always make sure that you're fact checking and price checking and all that good stuff. And just know, as an agent, that if they choose a resource that was given to them by you or a friend, we often see friends give resources, and that resource falls through, they call us immediately. That's one of the things that I've noticed is when things aren't going into, we'll say, into contract for us, right? We've done the estimate and they haven't hired us, but everything seemed to be going well. That person is now calling us back, 4 to 6 weeks later and saying like, hey, the other guy never showed up.
Right.
And it's because they priced, it's because they didn't know how to estimate the job. And we priced it, even though it's not the cheapest bid they saw, it's the right price. And that's what we can do it for and get it done fast.
So let's talk about the process. So people want to do some work, and let's talk about two things. Number one, people want to do some work in their house when they buy their house. Maybe it's a bathroom, maybe it's a kitchen, or maybe it's just moving walls. So they call Legion Pro. Go through your process so that people understand what has to happen, and also give me behind the scenes, behind the process stuff. So go through that for us.
So the process can change depending on the situation. I've done virtual estimates. So that's people, via Zoom meeting or FaceTime. I just did one yesterday, actually, for smaller scopes. So that's just like a painting quote or hardwood flooring, giving people some advice based off of the condition of certain items. But basically our process is we do estimates on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Our times for estimates are from 10 a.m. to 3:30, and the customer can choose any time within there. Myself and my partner, the owner of the company as well, V, will show up. We'll take into account everybody's questions and concerns. And for the most part, Dave, and you probably already know this, a lot of our pricing is already set. A lot of our pricing is ready to go, right? So when somebody takes me into a full bathroom, it doesn't take me a week to tell them this general renovation for a full remodel is $8,500. That's our cost to remodel the bathroom, minus the materials such as the vanities and new toilets and stuff like that. And I can tell them, our demolition of a full bathroom's $1,600. We're licensed to haul and remove. So they can do those numbers on the spot. Now, there are certain variables, if they're asking for plumbing to be completely moved around, if we have to move gas lines, then we're going to have to go ahead and probably pull permits, and we take people through that process. Again, our coordinator can help with that facilitation and documentation, all that. But generally, people will be receiving full detailed estimates. And when you see an estimate of ours, I don't know if you've seen ours yet, everything is line itemed. Even with our painting, you have, it's not just $2,500 to paint your house. It's $299 for the bedroom. It's $349 for the living room. It's $249 for the bathroom. It's completely broken down and explained in detail if there's any materials that are included or not included, right? And then we send out that full estimate within 24 to 48 hours.
Okay. So go ahead.
I was going to say, and I follow up properly. So like a regular business should, I text people to make sure they got it, because not just to annoy people, but sometimes it does go to spam. And then we follow up, within like 3 or 4 days if we haven't received a response. And generally, people will say at that time, like they maybe didn't understand 1 or 2 things, and we help them through it.
So you get them an estimate in a couple of days, and now you've got people that want to move into a house, but they've got to have the work done. Are you able to turn on a dime, and if they say yes, you can start tomorrow, or how does all that work for you? I know it's all about scheduling and what you got going and stuff. Are you able to move a little bit faster than most contractors?
Our bandwidth is fine, right? So if somebody wants to start a job on Monday, we had one yesterday for a half bath remodel that wants to start on Monday. We have the bandwidth to do. We have 3 teams. And again, we can jump in and do anything that any subs are unable to handle. Now, something I will tell people right now, where scheduling becomes difficult, and it works to our favor, because we have all of the background systems, materials, and deliveries associated with COVID delays have become the issue. So yes, we can start the bathroom on Monday, but if he ordered materials that aren't available or not deliverable for 4 to 6 weeks, then that's when the job has to start. So that's another value add too. We are always ordering, so we know in advance what to give people as a realistic timeline.
So a homeowner wants to redo their bathroom, but they want to go pick out their own. Well, of course they're going to pick out their own stuff. Do you have a set amount of stuff that you're going to use, or are you going to send them to a showroom where they can pick whatever they want? They're paying for the extras on that, or is there a allowance for that? So
in certain scenarios, like so tile, there's a huge variance. So for the most part, you're going to see tile costs anywhere from $2 to $10, and there's such a big variance there that we prefer that they choose the tile. We'll pick it up for them. So the local tile store, go look at them. It's something you also want to look at in person. But we're also sending pictures to people today. I'm sending an option for the half bathroom on Monday. I'm sending him 3 options. He wants whites and beiges. And then he's going to just pick based off of the photos or a FaceTime. And again, we will pick that up for them. So we'll assist there. But I do have, like you're saying, Dave, I have some people that are like, listen, I don't want to do all that work. Can you help me? Can you just pick it out for me and include it in the price? And that's where we loop in our transaction coordinator, and they facilitate with that. And they're perfectly understand that, there's variance in prices, and we'll put all of that in front of them, and we can handhold.
Awesome. So we've got a little bit idea of how the process works. We got a little idea that you're able to do things probably a little bit quicker than most, and you're going to show up, which is probably one of the most important things. Yeah. So we talked about, you mentioned the magic word of permits earlier, right? Yeah. And there are things that don't need permits, and there are things that do need permits. So talk to us about that. You talked about a bathroom, and then you said, well, if they're going to move pipes, they're going to move this, we're going to have to get a permit. Talk to me about this is great for really anybody that's either thinking about changing something or whatever. So talk to me about permits, when permits are required, when they're not required. Is it town specific? Talk to me about that.
If you're in an urban area, it's going to be a lot more difficult than suburb or rural. So let's put it this way. If you're working with existing electrical and plumbing, you're fine. If you're going to be changing that or adding plumbing or electrical that doesn't exist, that's going to be permitted, right? So I'll give you a good example. We have a job going on at Crystal Point, which is a bathroom remodel at a high-rise building in Jersey City. We're changing just the bath or the shower drain pan. We're just changing the size of it, and we had to pull permits. Plenty of other areas, we probably wouldn't have had to do anything. But since it's in a luxury HOA building and they want everything done by the book, that triggered a permit in their eyes. I mean, many times we would not have an issue with that. So really, it's somewhat case by case, but really kind of rule of thumb. If you're working with what's already there, you're perfectly fine. And if you're going to be adding something that doesn't currently exist, that's going to trigger a permit.
So give us an idea, an example of, like, for instance, okay, so we want to redo a bathroom and there's a sink, toilet, and tub in there.
Mm-hmm.
We're just going to replace all three. We're going to change the configuration, but we're going to basically leave the same thing there. Do we need a permit inspections there?
No.
Okay.
Nope. Not unless you're taking that shower and moving it to the other side of the bathroom, and to which now you have to take drain lines and you're going to move the drain lines completely to the other side and reconfigure everything. That in urban areas, that is going to trigger a permit. Suburban areas, it kind of is a little bit case by case depending on the city. But for the most part, you'll be okay there because you're not really affecting anybody else that's sharing walls with you.
So mostly everything's going to be, as you say, going to be town or city specific as to what their requirements are and what their fees are. That's probably a big difference in all over the place, right?
Fees and timeline. The thing is, it's not so much the fees that get you, it's the timeline gets extended, and that in the long run can cost you a lot of money. So, just to give you an idea of what needs to be done, a lot of people right now are asking us to add laundries to their units, right? With COVID, everybody wants everything in their house. An architect needs to draw plans. Plans need to be presented to the building department. The building department then needs to approve it, then issue the approved permits. Then we can start the work. From there, they need to inspect it once we do the rough work. Then they need to inspect it once they do the final work. So you extended your timeline by 3 to 5 weeks right off the bat.
Oh, wow. That can really hurt, right?
It's painful. Yeah.
So Legion Pro, new company, you've been working on it you said 18 months, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have the owner of the company. Talk to me about him, his background, and what the impetus was for you two to get together.
So his background, he's been general contractor and commercial contractor for 25 years. Worked on a portfolio of over 200 properties. They developed hundreds of properties. And also, so in terms of commercial, was developing Chase Bank, 7-Elevens, Dunkin' Donuts, vanilla box type of stuff.
Right.
And my background, I've basically always been in sales and customer service industries. And, it's two different mentalities, builder and customer service. Right. And super intelligent guy understands that the customer service is not really their forte, but they're extremely, extremely anal about doing everything perfect. So the marriage of the two is something that we don't think exists. We haven't seen it. So, it took us a good 18 months. Again, there was a lot of failure before there was success. There was a lot of coming up with how this was actually even going to work, and what are we even selling and how are we going to sell it? And so I had failed before we started. I tried to start a painting company. I realized immediately, like, yes, everyone needs painting, but I just don't have that skilled, reliable labor. I don't know how to manage it. Right. He knows how to manage it, and he has that skilled, reliable labor. He just doesn't know how to sell it and create the client experience. So that's where the marriage came, and that's why we've gotten off to such a fast start.
Yeah. So and that's what I want to talk about. I mean, there's a lot of people out there. I mean, we can talk about real estate agents. We can talk about people, young entrepreneurs that want to get into business, and people are going to think, wow, this guy like walked away from his huge real estate business to go into this other thing, which was, maybe kind of iffy, right? And you decided to do it. So talk to me about your process. I mean, you decided to work together, and then you had to build your process and your structure.
Yeah.
Talk to me about what was the most important thing of building your business. And the reason I ask these questions, I mean, yes, we're talking about Go Legion Pro and what you guys do, but it's also a case study in entrepreneurship as well. So let's talk about where, what you started in and what you had to think about where some of the things you thought were going to work and you had to change really quickly. Talk about that, Steve, because that's really important.
Yeah. So I'm glad you asked that question, especially and you don't have to be younger for this to impact you. You just have to be somebody that may be a little bit, let's say, reluctant or afraid to take a chance. And I had, you bring up how I had a successful real estate career, but along that road, there was so much failure.
Right.
I failed so many times before I started to even become successful. I didn't sell a home. I was selling real estate. I was in real estate for 3.5 years before I sold a home. I sold hundreds after that, but I didn't know what I was doing. And I was a little bit afraid to put myself out there. I was so afraid of failure that I didn't even start. Right. So I think one of the most important things was myself and gentlemen I'm partnered with, is we knew we were going to fail, and we knew that was a good thing. We understood hey, listen, we're going to book this job. We don't really have a process yet. We're going to have to build it around this job. So, it was important that we had the mindset that failure is essential to achieve success. And it's always important to make sure that you fail forward. Right. So even if it felt like epically bad, fail forward. Take that, learn from it. And, I read a lot, and I would recommend that people choose the right mentors, choose the right people that have not just a, positive mindset, but a holistic mindset, and make sure that you're listening to what they say every day. I start off my mornings by listening to some positive messages and restarting. You have bad days, but that doesn't mean you have to have bad weeks, or bad months. Tomorrow's a new day. And I took some notes down, something that I will go back to. And not that I put myself on these guys' level at all, but people that have who would you say is the most successful person in the United States today?
You're going to say Warren Buffett, I'm going to say?
I say Jeff Bezos, right?
Okay, Jeff Bezos. Good idea.
Right?
Good point.
Another guy that stands out is Elon Musk, right? They've had more failure than Warren Buffett has, right? Those guys are extreme. They've had so many failures. They talk about how many failures they've had. Bezos talks about he's had over 1.5 billion in failures that have led to what's built his company. But their two core principles are both similar, and the two are actually not friendly towards one another, but they have two core principles that are extremely similar. They're always focusing on what people want. Right. Even if it sounds crazy, they're going to focus on this is what people want. And then the second portion of it is delivering a great customer experience. And with those two things, if they can find what people want and they can deliver it with great customer experience, it doesn't really matter what industry you're in, as long as it has those two variables. And that's why we've been able to I was able to go from real estate to contracting fairly easily. Principles are the same.
And people need to look at what these computer companies look at, and they shipping date is more important than completion date, right? So I mean, let's look at Windows. That for years and years now, I'm not a PC user any longer, but I know that they would come out with a new operating system. Everybody would love it, and everybody be bitching and moaning. And then right away they'd come out with a new one. Yeah. But everybody didn't know that the new one was just the old one fixed. Right?
Exactly.
They'd figure it all out. They would ship it before it was even, they knew the bugs. And you talk about what people want, right? Apple. The difference between, so let's look at the MP3 player, okay? Now, there was an MP3 player that, the PC people put out and said it can hold 100 megabytes of music. right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, or a gig of music, whatever it is, it can hold a gig of information. Apple came out and said you can have 1,000 songs in your pocket. Two completely different things, same idea, but what Apple was looking for was the customer experience and what the customer really wanted. Nobody understood what a megabyte or a gigabyte was back then, but the people who wanted the music in their pocket, they knew what 100 or 1,000 songs was. So it was a big difference. And a big difference, I think, between both the PC and Apple was that Apple always asked people what they wanted, rather by just putting something out that they thought was going to work. And that's the difference between PC and Apple, in my opinion, because I've seen it, right? Mm-hmm. And that's why the iPhone took off. And that's why people are online for the new iPhone. I don't even know where we're at now. I just stopped thinking about it because when they got to be over a couple of $100, I said, I'll just wait, until mine dies or stops working. But,
well, it's also the customer experience too, right?
Right.
So I think anybody, and if we're using that analogy, I think anybody that used Windows Vista knows the pain of a bad customer experience, as to where Apple takes a lot of time to roll out a new project. They will make sure that they've worked out most of the kinks. Obviously, like you said, they'll roll out updates, but they'd rather not bring out a bad product. They'd rather fail internally before they bring it out to the public. They're focused on that customer experience.
Yeah. So like what you've done with Legion Pro, it all circles around to what we were just talking about. People may think, well, you're talking about contracting, now you're talking about computers and you're talking about No, it's all the same thing. It all circles around to the same thing where you're talking about, what the customer wants. You saw an issue because you dealt with it yourself. Mm-hmm. People disappear. Right. I mean, this was a guy you needed. I mean, to talk about the stairs issue in your one project, right?
Yeah.
Did you tell that story? You didn't tell that story. Tell that story.
We had it's one of those things that you can't make up, and I had an issue getting my materials delivered. There's a bunch of different problems involved with even getting the first floor done, and then finally, the materials got delivered, and the contractor that was supposed to be building our stairs to the upstairs, the second and third floors, just completely disappeared. So I was stuck with all of my materials. Finally, they made it, and there was no way to get them up the stairs. There were no stairs. And then I found out how difficult it was to find a historical stair builder. One never called me back. To this day, he just never called me back. And then the second guy, it took him like 3 weeks to show up. He showed up on a bicycle. He rode like 6 miles on a bike. He came, he looked at it, and never called me back. And then he finally called me maybe I would say almost 6 weeks later to let me know he was booked up for the next 5 or 6 months. So I was going to have materials on my first floor for 6 months waiting for this guy to come back and maybe do my stairs. Or I reached out. I did a Hail Mary. I asked somebody that I didn't think was going to be able to help, and luckily he was right there 10 minutes later, and he helped me get those stairs built.
Yeah, so this is all too typical in the contracting industry. I used to say back years ago when I was in it not too long, anybody with a pickup truck and a hammer was a contractor and a house flipper, and that was in the late 80s, early 90s. When we had a foreclosure issue way back when. I don't know if you're old enough to understand that or to remember that, but we had that issue, and people were buying homes and fixing them up and selling them. Like I said, anybody with a hammer and a pickup truck was a contractor. And we do see some of that today, and it's just there's people do need one way or the other some kind of license, and people are excited to get licenses. So. How do people get in touch with you, Steve, when they want to get through? I mean, I'll put this one thing on the board. Let's see what I do with it. There it is.
Yeah, our website, for whatever reason, our hosting is down right now, so they're resolving that today. So I would direct them towards our blog. We got a new Legion Pro blog. So put that up on the screen there.
Okay, we'll put that up on the screen.
They'll get to see our next video, which is a restoration rescue project that's going on right now. It's 1 block away from where the staircase issue happened. Almost the same exact property. and we're actually working on the stairs right now. We're finishing out that entire scope of work. That owner, the owner of that property, Brett, 2 years that project's been going on.
Wow.
2 years that has been going on. I mean, that's how much pain they've gone through. So Legion Pro blog, you'll get to see that video. It comes out actually, I think we're going to be delivering it on Tuesday, but it's already up on the blog site. And then really the best ways to reach out to me is steve@golegionpro.com. And that's my primary email for Legion Pro.
So what would be your, thank you for that. What would be your recommendation to people that are looking to do renovations or to build or whatever? I mean, what would be your process if you were, you're buying a home, you're not sure what to do, but you want some changes? I mean, what's the process you should go through as a homeowner, as a home buyer?
I would, knowing what I know now, taking, my construction hat off, putting myself back in the I don't know anything phase. I would recommend that you do reach out to people that are attached to the industries, like your realtors, maybe even other contractors. Like I had a chimney sweep done today. I asked him if he knows anybody that does siding, right? Because I don't want my guys doing siding right now. But so he had an answer right away, and I'm like, okay, guy was pretty confident about that. So I would make sure that you're getting answers from people that they're confident in. And definitely get 2 or 3 estimates, and don't go for the lowest number. Throw that one out.
Okay.
I would always throw out the lowest number. That one either missed something, or they can't do it for that. But I would focus on the 2 that are above that, and go with who I felt was most professional, but also make sure that I'm getting great customer service up front, because that ain't going to change. If you're not getting calls back from them, if it takes them 2 weeks to estimate, how long do you think it's going to take them to finish your job? So if the other one's a little bit more expensive, but they're completely responsive, they're super detailed, knowing what I know now, I'd be willing to pay more.
So we see all these flyers coming in. We don't get as many junk mail pieces as we used to, and because we see these big department stores going out of business left and right now. It seems like a typical thing, but you still see these magazines and these mailings that come out, Value Pack, Clipper magazine, and they are filled with contractors.
Are they?
What's that?
They are?
Oh yeah, filled with
wow.
contractors. Maybe there's a pizzeria in there. Maybe there's a taco place or a local fast food place, but they're filled with contracts. It's like almost like a contractor digest,
Yeah.
These are ads that say, half off this, half off that, 20% off this. Just because they're in there, does it mean that they're good?
It may be the other way around. And you can see it's not part of our business plan. I didn't even know that took place. A lot of times when you look at online, so that's actual physical paper. People look at like Home Advisor and stuff like that, right?
Right.
Thumbtack, those other. The issue that I would warn people about is that similarly, exactly, those are not going to be your best contractors. Those are ones that just haven't figured out how to generate sales, so they're trying to buy business, and then they're unable to fulfill. It's a race to the bottom for that one. They're trying to come in with the lowest price, and then they can't fulfill it based off of those numbers. We are 100% referral based.
100% referral based, but you have a website. You're out there. I mean, you're out there telling people what to do. And I want to tell everybody that, as I said, my experience with Legion Pro has been excellent as a recommendation, as a referral base, as a real estate agent. Did wonderful work for my clients, and I would recommend them highly. Steve, is there anything else you'd like to end this with? We've had a good time here. Is there anything that you would suggest to people where they could do to do better job at getting contractors?
It's not going to be easy. Like I said, I haven't seen anybody doing it the way that we're doing it, But I would say have that screening process of don't just go to Thumbtack and see who's marketing themselves up there. Make sure that you're getting resources from people who have been in the business for a while, ones that they're absolutely confident in giving out, excited to give out.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and don't go for the lowest price.
Okay, so there's a question. I said we ask one question in the beginning and a question at the end.
Yeah.
The question is, how can I help you grow your business?
You're doing it right now. Just exposure. This is I sincerely appreciate it. This is how we market ourselves. Basically, is reputable people like yourself coming out and speaking on our behalf, and that's how we've been 100% referral based. So I appreciate you having me on.
Oh, you're very welcome. But you know what? Just like everybody else coming on a show. I mean, we've done 125 shows now, and everybody's got the same thing. You know what they want, right?
I was going to say, I have a question for you. Where's my hat?
Well, your hat is right here. And, everybody that comes on the show gets a hat. From everybody that's been on this, everybody's wanted the hat, and they're coming out. And we hope in the next few months we have a special hat coming out. But we've got these ready to go. They actually get signed by me too. How about that?
You sell that on eBay.
I know you can sell it, right? I mean, it's got a lot of value. But Steve, I want to thank you for coming on. Let everybody know next week we have one of my friends. I'm happy to call her friend Karen Carr, who is very big with YouTube and her real estate business. That's the only thing she does for her real estate business, and she is a top agent down in Savannah, Georgia. So Karen's going to join us. She's a second-time appearance for her, and we're going to have her on. Steve, hang out for a few minutes, and we'll come right back. But we're gonna trail out here, and I want to thank everybody for watching the broadcast today. Any questions? LegionProBlog.com, or tomorrow probably GoLegionPro.com will be up and running. Steve's on Facebook. He's all over the place. He's very easy to find, as I am. Thank you so much, guys. I look forward to next week's show. So let's just make sure I know what I'm doing here as I move forward. It's a little tricky. I'm trying to extra things this week. So here we go. Well, that didn't work. So anyway.
They look cool.
I know. We got to try it again, right? Here we go. Let's do it now.
Come on, let's do that.